Have any tissue on my face, right? Good evening, everybody. Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon, everybody. Depending on where you are, you're in one of those time zones. It's a rainy, dreary day where I'm at today. How do we get to a point in society where women like degrading music? Pretty women. Pretty women with short videos, several of them. In fact, all of a sudden, Nicki Minaj, who I'm most outspoken against, has a song called Daddy, and it's horrible. It's got the B word in it, and it's got that cadence. It's offensive. It's gross. Why do girls like crappy music? If you can even call it that. Why are they drawn to that like moths are to a light on an Arizona night in Arizona? I remember when we first moved to Prescott, there was a light outside the front of the house, and you'd see them buzzing around. And in the morning, there was all different colored moths, all diversity of moths, all up on the wall, all around the globe. And you see that. It doesn't matter if it's the Philippines, doesn't matter if it's a sweet, sweet, innocent looking gal. They got that, but they're talking about me, about the bugger girl, this. It's worse than tribal music. It's worse than pagan music. It's so utterly awful. I don't know Nicki Minaj. I don't want to know her. I already know. I've had enough experiences with people. Cardi B and Nicki Minaj are not going to be comfy with me, nor I them. And we have to shake the dust off our feet to realize we not only live in a caste system in our culture. Most people that make 100,000 or triple digit figures, and they're not going to hang out with me. Money hangs out with money. Filth hangs out with filth. And I've had to learn the hard way that when you try to reason with people anywhere, whether and I'll lay it out. I live in Augusta. It's 53% black. Even if that's not your cup of tea, you cannot ignore that. And when you live in a town like this, they're the number one force here. It doesn't matter what store you go into. You're not going to find an all white whatever here. Not that that's wrong. Not that that's wrong at all. I mean, I lived in China. I was surrounded by nothing but Chinese. Did not bother me, but I was a visitor. When you live in this, when you're around a culture that thinks a certain way and their thinking is completely contrary to yours, makes for some problems. When you have a group of people that's been indoctrinated and entrenched by leftism and liberal politics, and now they're the tail wagging the dog. The cops are afraid to deal with them. They don't want to be accused of racism. Employers are coddling them. Coddling. They're enabling them. They don't want a racist lawsuit slapped against them. So they can walk in late. They can show up late. They can piddle around, and you have to have literally 900 cubic yards of paper trail before you can let go of them. Me? Shoot, I didn't even have to do anything wrong. They just say, I don't like the way you look. Bye. It is different for us today. It's very different. It's almost like we're being punished for the sins of the fathers. Actually, my father wasn't even part of that. The one that adopted me. But this music. How do you get a pretty attractive woman enjoying, getting sustenance, and they're all, what is all this? I got to talk about it. What is the fascination with this filth? It's sewage. I mean, you're going across a hot, dusty desert. You're begging for a cup of water, and somebody hands you a fresh glass of sewage. You're going to drink it? Women are. Does anybody remember those two women that got up and had that one cup thing? Anybody remember that? I was living in Hong Kong when that came out. This was in the U.S., supposedly. Two women that were lesbian and they decided to poop in a cup and eat it together. I mean, do I have to even bother to say how utterly disgusting that is? That there are lesbians out there that believe you truly love your lover, you'll go down on her when she's having her period and lick and suck all that up. I'm like, you know what? You notice that paganism and women are just a hand in glove. You notice that? They gravitate towards Wiccan and they always gravitate towards false religion. Just about every woman I talk to, even ones that claim to be Christian, they hold on to beliefs that are just utterly wrong. You can't tell them anything to the contrary. You can't shake them from it. You can't. And the Bible talks about this. That the Bible, Paul says, let a woman learn in silence. Keep her silence in the church. And it says women were deceived first. Paul makes a point to say that. Paul makes a point to say that women are the weaker vessel. You see it in society. Women are off the rails today. Feminism. And Christian women who claim to go to church, claim to love God, are listening to Nicki Minaj Daddy with the B word and the F word and the N word. Why do they like that? I'm trying to unpack that. What? I posted a picture of this the other day. And, just since I stopped the chat, it's amazing the difference. Most of these younger generation and most women won't even know what that is. This was a ship. The ship was beautiful. It was all Art Deco interior. The Normandy was the most fabulous liner ever built. I mean, the Titanic, the Queen Mary, all those have their place. But the Normandy was second to none. She clearly had a French look about her. Her yacht-like bow, that knife edge. You go up on the forecastle deck, they had a wave breaker. It was one of the first transatlantic liners to employ that. And when you got into 60-foot seas, that bow, which is 60, 65 feet above the water, that thing would go down so low when you're coming through the trough. The water would hit and it'd smash up to the bridge windows. That deflector built in up there would push it away like a snowplow. You notice how women like superficial, flaky, skin deep stuff? I often think I was born in the wrong era. Those ships are gone. There's one left sitting in Long Beach, and she's badly deteriorating. But you can still walk on it and catch a glimpse of the way it was. To travel by that, now you shove and push, get on a plane. There you lived on that thing for a week. 4 or 5 days crossing the Atlantic. And I put the Waltz of the Flowers, which really doesn't fit a French ocean liner, but it definitely fits the grandeur and majesty of a ship like that. Not one single like. I said, isn't that funny? It's not me wearing my unusual clothing. It's a beautiful black and white original photo of the Normandy. You see the crowds on the quay there. You see the crowds all up on the ship. People wanted to go down and see those things come and go. Malcolm Brennan used to run down to the docks of New York and watch the big liners come in. Cruise ships, they're not pretty like that. They're not stately like that. I'm still old school. If I was filthy rich and had absolutely nothing better to do with my money, I would have a ship like that built today. I'd live on it. I'd live on it. And it would be sailing. And I'd make it the fastest, grandest ocean liner the world has ever seen. The decadence of our age. I'm like, is there something wrong with me? I get into classical music. And I find that last night I was just really wanting to get into that. Is it Nessun Dorma? Can't reach those notes. That's a beautiful piece of music. Bo Sawyer, Debussy. Debussy thought his music was horrible. Can you imagine what Debussy would say about Nicki Minaj, Daddy? Can you imagine what Mozart? Could you imagine if you could put Nicki Minaj and Cardi B in Austria in the auditorium where the classical greats perform like Mozart? Can you imagine that crowd sitting there and watching one of those women get up on stage and sing and do what they do? You talk about throwing fruit, which they did. If you didn't perform well in Europe, you got pelted with apples, oranges, and who knows what. I think Nicki and Cardi B would be singing a new song called Fruit Smack because they'd be getting it. We've slipped. And I arrested the channel. I grabbed control of it because we're slipping. I'm slipping. You're slipping. I realize we don't have those big ships. I realize you can't live in the past. Why not? None of you watching knows how beautiful the inside of that ship was. You get on a ship like that, that wasn't some little boat that you feel go like this and tipping every time you move. You felt like you were in something beyond the Waldorf Astoria. You felt like this is a ship. Oh my gosh. There was class to it. To sail on the Normandy was a privilege. It was vintage. I'd love to go back in time just to walk the decks, just to stroll the ship, just to feel her, the vibrations of her engine, go down in the engine room and just walk on the promenade deck and just breathe it all in. Stand on the stern of the ship and look at the wake. This big, massive propeller driving her on. She actually grabbed the speed record once, and then the Queen Mary took it back. Queen Mary's a beautiful ship. And I forgot how it was said, but it said the the difference between French and Cunard Line liners was, I can't remember which applied to who, but the British built a beautiful hotel and put a ship around it. The French built a beautiful ship and put a hotel inside of her. The French, with the Normandy, that was the travel posters, that big bow, those big smokestack. That smokestack is big enough to fit 3 locomotives side by side. There's a full blown tennis court between either the first or the second and third smokestack. People were different back then. The French, my gosh, they were the standard setters for fashion. I don't know how. It's erosion. It's like I talked about erosion that women are eroding, corroding. I opened up a big, the box was open, but it's a big pallet with a wooden frame and sides around it. Then it was in the way of where we stayed shipping stuff. And I told my boss, I said, I'm going to find out what this crap. He goes, please do. I'm getting sick of all that mess over there. Got down in there and there was rocks and gravel down in there. I was like, wow, this was outside. What was this, in a brickyard or a gravel quarry? They had a compressor that I pulled out. It was literally bicarbonated all over it. I mean, it looked like it had calcified and sodified. I said, wow, this is a beaut. This is brand new. We buy parts. Sometimes the stuff we get, it was an AC unit. An AC unit was perfect. But the other parts, mold, the cartons that came in were water damaged and molded out. I was like, wow. And that's what's happened to music. I already know that there's going to be people say, well, Mike, that's your opinion and people don't agree with you. I realize that. But that's not class. 300 years from now, nobody's going to be listening to Nicki. Nobody. The classical music still stands the test of time. It beats country. It beats rap. It beats rock. And I like some rock. I like quite a bit of rock. But even in the rock music, if you could read my mind, love, what a story my thoughts would tell. Contrast that to the cadence of the genre of music that these women are listening to today. It's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. Can you imagine being married men to a Nicki, a Cardi, even a Taylor Swift? Can you imagine being married? Do you think that you would wake up breathing the fresh air of freedom with women like that? Imagine if you had a nice home, not one of these McMansions that they all want, but an actual nice home with interiors like that ship right there, with their hoochie nanny tops and hoochie nanny clothing and their twerking mentality. It just doesn't fit. It just doesn't fit. And our age is sliding into the abyss. There was a program I used to listen to on the radio in Duluth, and I discovered it sheerly by accident. Friday or Saturday night, I never heard Bo Sawyer before by Debussy. Bill Pierce had a program called Night Sounds out of all places, Chicago. Bo Sawyer starts off with this hunting choir type of. I can't do it. Can't do justice to it. Beautiful music. And I would look out the window in the Minnesota cold with the snow, the wind blowing, and it literally swirling and sandblasting the glass. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that music fits. Women don't like that stuff today. You know, I'm glad I had the experience I did. They shaped me. I'm glad I went to Duluth by myself. And even then, looking back, there were girls attracted me. They weren't into any of the stuff I was into. None of it. They weren't into ocean liners and the classical music. They weren't. They liked me. I remember one gal I dated when I first moved up there. When I'd leave town for overnight charters with basketball teams and stuff, I said, here, I'll give you a spare key. Go in and stay in my place, because she was going to the university. I said, you can study in there. She lived at the YWCA. She said, I love going to your place. I like your old things and the radiator creaking, and it's just got such an old feel and so peaceful in here. Did you hear that, ladies? Listening to Daddy is not peaceful. It makes me angry. I want to walk over like It's a Wonderful Life, like the lady when she went to the phonograph, picked up the record and went, poof. I mean, I'm feeling it. What's wrong with me? I was born in 66. A year later, the Queen Mary that was sailing along with that thing finished with engines at last. But I came into the world too late in my mind. I would have been that excited man going down to the docks on the Hudson and watching the big behemoths come in and being docked. I mean, man, look at that. Back then, boys were into trains and They bought those train sets. What was girls into back then? I don't really know, but it wasn't Nikki. You look at the way the women dressed on those liners. If I had my book, Beau Voyage by John Malcolm Brennan, I would show the black and white photos. He has a collection of photos. He's got a photo of the Titanic that is not out there. I don't know where he got it. He bought it from somebody who had a collection. Some of those ship photographs actually have rights to them. And it's a very haunting, foreboding picture looking at the stern and down the side of the Titanic. It's like, wow. And one of the most haunting photos of all is the kind of misty air. And somebody snapped the last picture ever of the Titanic off the coast of Ireland, out in the country. Some farmer, whatever, just said, wow, look at that. You see the 4 smokestacks in the distance. You go, that's it. Say goodbye, because that's the last picture. She wouldn't be photographed until 74 years later at the bottom. She sailed into eternity. To find women wired like Michael, there's no way. There's no way. When you look at today, then you look at what they're into and shopping malls and makeup and Starbucks and doggy and SUV culture. Yeah, I'm guilty. I'm stuck in the past. How can I not be? I want to go back to those good things. The Bible says, whatsoever things are pure, noble, lovely, of good report, think on such things. This stuff that is played on shorts and that music are embracing, I feel like I got to take a shower just listening to it. Women have cheapened themselves. They've degraded themselves. This isn't just my opinion. As the bar of society lowers, this is what's happening. I dare you to go and listen to some classical piece. Turn off Minaj and allow it to take over you. Because when it does, you'll stop listening to that junk. But isn't there a song called Too Far Gone? Yeah, we're too far gone. You see, what is in me stays. But these young women, how do you fix that? How do you get them off of that? You can't. I don't know if I can get this in here. For those of you that were on chat, that's Ellie. Pretty Filipina. And you look at women just glopped in makeup, blonde hair dye, fake blonde hair, painted eyebrows, like I talked about yesterday. Can you imagine seeing women like that walking the decks of the Normandy? No, that didn't exist. Go back to Greta Garbo, Betty Davis, and the Jean Harlow, and go back to those actresses. Oh my gosh, they were stunning. My grandpa had a book in the bathroom. I called it Black and White, Soft Porn. It was the actresses from the 20s up. He had interesting books. He had Merchant Marine magazines in there. He had I wish I'd have gotten this one. He had a magazine that had a picture of the bow of the Andrea Doria on the front. But his bathroom had interesting literature. I'd sit on the toilet looking at these 20s, 30s, 40s women. Even then in the 80s, I said, they're so different looking. They're so stately. Their clothing, their looks, their hair was beautiful. Look at what they're doing to themselves. I did a video in Hong Kong that gained traction for me 25, 30,000 views. Western women are destroying themselves. Falls on deaf ears. You got all these TikTok queens on the internet now, and they're getting 285,000 views, not because they have any talent, but because they're showing their midriff and their skimpy wear and they're dancing like they're retarded. And those are the ones making fun of me. Yeah, I feel like a dinosaur. I do. I want to launch into something here. I want to talk to you how different it is for me. We talk about culture. Let's talk about the culture of me. Let's do that. Every photo of the Titanic is haunting. Every photo of that ship is haunting. It's almost like it's a precursor of what was to come. It is the most talked about ship disaster ever. The maiden voyage, the ship that God himself could not sink. Kind of a foolish claim, huh? There's nothing we can build. Nothing. I did this as a backdrop last night to some beautiful music. Bo Sawyer, I believe. I cried last night. I don't cry much. One of the ladies said, "Can you do Pavarotti's Nessun Dorma?" Like, what is that? And I played it. I'm like, oh my gosh, I forgot about this piece. Christian, deep calls unto deep. It does. When you're shallow, the stuff you're interested in is just flammable. It's all going to burn. What stands the test of time is true beauty, true grandeur, majesty. You know, classical music doesn't make me think of breasts and nipples and booties, and classical music takes me into a very awesome place. It takes me into storms on the Atlantic. Picture old wooden sailing ships and the creaking timbers. Those ships, you know, the masts on those ships were made out of a giant tree. And that was some solid wood on those things. Classical music is powerful. It stands the test of time. Have you ever looked at the ladies in a classical concert? They're not dressed like Cardi B. I find myself looking at the white ladies playing violin. They are beautiful. They're dressed modestly. They look classy. And I'm like, oh, I'd like to get to know one of those ladies. What's going through their mind when they're playing this piece? You know, I'm sorry to say this, but we got a lot of crap in our culture today and a lot of flies. You know, you heard the term barflies, but ladies are drawn to crap. They're drawn to crappy men, crappy music, crappy drugs, crappy smelling marijuana, you know, dogs which eat their crap, lick their butts. Women just gravitate right around the bowl today. Not everyone, but most. It's like what they consider the bomb, the rave, the in vogue, you know, it's garbage. I could be alone. I am anyway. I have a culture. You have a culture. Unfortunately, a lot of people are bought and owned by corporate America. They got to get caught up in the commercial pushing the latest debt induced joyride. People got to rush out and buy an $80,000 Silverado. I'm sorry. I look back at a 60 Chevrolet pickup all restored. I'm going, you can get one of those for 23, 25, $27,000, and you're going to go pay 80,000 for this thing? There's not much steel in it. It's all plastic in the front end. It's ugly as sin. What's happened to us? Does anybody ever stop? You ever stop the free fall of you? I talked to a woman at length. Every time we're talking, I hear her pouring her drink. I said, man, you got to quit that. Oh, I'm not as bad as I used to be. I said, you're an alcoholic. You need to cut that 100% out of your life. You can't handle one drink. You're not going to stop there. Then there's the pot. Then there's the prescription drugs. Then there's this. Talk about a cocktail. And I'm not being hateful, but people really do love darkness rather than light. Music is reflective of what's in here. I think most of you would realize if you look at my music, it does tell a story on my shorts. I mean, I do a lot of modern stuff, but I don't do that horrible stuff. My music has a good sound. A lot of black music in the 80s was good. Don't you stop it. Don't you stop. Don't stop the music. Do you really want to stop? No. And this stuff today, it's just gotten worse in the last 20 years. It isn't talent. It's that same auto beat. And that crappy, it's, you got some ghetto woman with an attitude, with her bottom lip stuck 10 feet out. And people look at that and say, that's cool. No, it's sad. It's sad. It's decadent. You're angry. That is dysfunctional. Grown men, muscular grown men, buying a car and putting 3-foot pimpy McDonald's rims on it and listening to that. There's no class to that. I was at work yesterday, and I like what I do. It is busy. My muscles hurt. I'm picking up heavy, heavy, heavy stuff. 59 years old. Physically running circles around every single person I work with, yet again. There's a guy. He's white. He's a Christian. He was nice in the beginning. 6 years younger than me. His hair's turned pretty gray. And we're going to separate, things that I believe are wrong and then things that just irritate me. And we all have quirks. When I pull parts, I had some pretty big orders, 150 heaters. I had to wrap them up, box them up individually. A lot of stuff we sell, people buy it to resell. So they want them boxed up so that they can just go straight to the sales with it. And I pride myself in what I do. I had to collect 50 fuel filters, take them to the shop, take the filters out of them that were good. He wanted brand new ones in because customers are picky. That's what the owner told me. He said, there's nothing wrong with those filters. We'll put them back in the stock. I wrap them up individually, get a pallet, put up a box, tape it up, put it up, and stack everything. Write the sales order number on it, get a forklift or a pallet jack, and move it. I love using a pallet jack. Oh my gosh. People get out of the way when I go rolling across that cement. I'm pulling 1,000 pounds, and I'm just like, this guy right here. I've got pulling and pushing power. I don't always have this, but I can push and I can pull stuff. And when I get that baby going, get out of the way. I love the sound of that pallet jack with 1,500 pounds of product. I'm just trucking. I love it. I love being in tune with my body where I feel like I'm a human engine. I love that feeling. I don't like Nicki Minaj and that music. She needs to get saved. Women need to get saved. Women lead us men astray. Women lead by their feelings. Their feelings are more dominant than fact and concrete thought. You look at what they're listening to, and it's proof women were deceived first. They gravitate towards evil like a moth light. We have a Jezebelian culture. Christian women listen to this stuff, and there's not one shred of, hey, this isn't right. Yeah, have you ever heard the term get a check in your spirit? When you're a Christian, you get a check. If you haven't seared your conscience so bad, you get a check. And it goes something like this. You know, sometimes I've said something and I immediately feel this knife go in me. Michael, God, I'm sorry. Sometimes it's a little slower, but the check still comes. Like when I'm engaging in foolishness and God's Michael. Yes, God. What are you doing? Sorry, God. That's how you know you're a Christian. You got a dashboard up here. Sometimes your gauges are wrong because you've calibrated them to the world. But if you're a Christian, if you're a child of God, you're going to feel something. Your gauge is going to be reading and you're going to go, uh-oh, there's a problem. And our society's not doing that. So anyways, get off the music for a minute. Let's take a siesta. Personal thing that irritates me is him scuffing his boots. Grown man walking, slough, slough, slough. I mean, I can hear him coming, and it irritates me. Then I'm moving. There's a big roll of the brown paper that I use for packing. We got the bubble wrap. We got all kinds of things. Some of the stuff that I pack is 120 pounds. These damn generators, they have to be foamed. I have to put together a box, set it on the floor, turn on the foam machine. I have to wrap the heavy beast thing in plastic so the foam doesn't get on it or into it. Then I got to squirt the corners of the box with the foam trigger, put it up in the holder, you scrape the goop off of it, and you grab this big, heavy son of a gun thing. You wait for the foam to rise, and you got to do it just right. You don't want it to go too high up over the top of the box, but you got to do it just right. Then you got to set that thing down in there, and it better not go poof straight to the bottom. As foam hard, you set it, and it just settles and nestles in there just right. You put a piece of plastic over that, foam it again. Wait for the foam to rise. You fold the plastic over, tuck the ends of the flaps in, and it'll sit on the box. One day, things got out of control. I foamed it, and I didn't get it shut, and it went, I'm like, oh my gosh, I think I put too much in there. Everybody's laughing. I had to wait till it dried so I could pull it all apart and do it again. That's $1,800 a jug of that stuff. These jugs are this big. The I feel like there's some passive aggressive going on. And I pay attention. Now that I know what I'm doing, I can move. And I've got a song going through my head. I'm thinking something while I'm doing this. I'll read the special instructions. Do not pack. Please weigh each item individually. This is going overseas. It has to do with tariffs and stuff. I have to weigh every nut. They had an order of castle bolts or Loctite washers, or I have to just weigh one of each. They get a generator, got to weigh it. They got a wiper and a wiper arm and a wiper motor, got to weigh them each. And I write the stats next to the item. And I'll tell the shipment guy, everything's weighed. You want to check this? I'm going to pack it up. The quicker I can get the stuff off my table, the more peace of mind I have. Sometimes we'll pull an order, pull 10 different things, and there's one thing we can't find. This sits there for 2 weeks. Like, ugh. Sometimes the sales guys say, we're going to go ahead and ship all this today. And we'll just wait till I said, yeah, right on. So I like what I do. I don't see this guy working near the volume, speed, productivity that I am. And it's not me being vain. That comes into play because one day he stood up and says, nobody helps me over here. I said, excuse me? I said, you got 2 employees. Those are employees, but nobody helps. I said, the guy that worked with me got fired. I'm by myself over here. Sometimes they send one of your guys over, but man, I'm deep in the trench over here, buddy. Part of me wants to say, I don't even want to hear it. You sloughing your feet back and forth all day. I want to say, man, dude, pick up your feet. I don't. But he's been being rude, condescending. I pulled an item the other day that had 3 NSN numbers in it. 3 tickets with the NSN. I said, great, which one belongs to this? Somebody went in the bin where the generators were, and when they moved stuff around, they pulled the tags and threw them all in the box with a new generator. So the man said, I'll do some research and find out which one that is. He did. He goes, go find a place to put this and get back to me. We'll just put it back in a different place. I said, right on. So I went back. I said, that's B100B. It does say cores on it, but there's only one thing. Well, you can't put that there. I said, why? He said, it's for cores only. I said, I saw that, but there's none in there. And I was told by the guy in the shop, there's not going to be cores for a long while. Then he turns around and looks at me. And he's done this with everything. Do you know what a core is? We live in a crass age, and I want to turn around and say, no, of course I know it. I said, dude, I'm 59 years old. I think I know what a core is. But I'm not going to be able to move that right now. As you can see, I want to say is you're sloughing your boots back and forth. I got all this stuff to do, and nobody's helping me today. I don't got time for you to pick at this one item. I said, when I get caught up on this, I'll find another place. He just went and did it. That was his big move for the day. We have to fill out these surveys. It's just not a have to, but they want us to. They got smiley faces and emoticons and everything. It's like, this is what business is doing. You go to the bank. Please tell us about your last experience with the teller. So your cleavage was showing. She gave me a recipe biatch face. What else you want to know? Why do I got to fill out a survey every time I go into anything? I don't got time for all that. 10 minutes of my time. How about if we do this way? If she's acting bad, I'm going to let you know because I'm going to call the branch manager and say, hey, I was just in a bank and treated rude. That's it. And if they're doing good, I tell them to their face. You know what? I appreciate coming to you. You're always pleasant. You always help me. Thank you. I don't need to fill out all these surveys, but they want us to do it at work. So I've been doing it. Last night I went to go in there and it says you must log in. Log in? I've never had to log in. So I texted my boss. I said, I can't do the survey because I got to log in and I never had to do that. He came to me because I'd put things in the survey. I didn't mention the name of this guy. I said, I'm getting tired of disparaging remarks. Super came to me last 20 minutes of work, says, go to the break room and bring niece and see her. Right away, I got a pit in my stomach because got to go to HR. Y'all know what happened to me. I don't really want to deal with HR. And HR knows the guy. They went to the same Christian school together. There's all this talk about cultural sensitivity and in the workplace and stuff, right? There's all this talk about cultural sensitivity today. And one thing that's not being communicated in today society is my backyard. That's what it looked like just 2 months ago. Now it's browner than a leaf. It's dreary out there today. My yard looks like a park after I mow it. I've trimmed up all those trees where you can walk under them and nothing's hanging. I don't like trees growing down to the ground. Just looks disgusting. There's a cat now hanging out back there. Um, she goes, hey, there were some issues that come up, and right away I get a pin. I'm like, what? Now? I'm coming to work. I'm busting my butt. Now what have they got against me? And you had mentioned somebody in the survey, and you're not mentioning a name, and we want to talk about that. And I said, hey, I'm not here to snitch. No, no. Now, I'm not a fan of her. I'm just being honest. I'm not crap talking her. I don't feel comfortable with women over me. My mother was my mother, and she wasn't a mom. My mother was harsh and abusive, and I've been through a lot of stuff and feminism. And I handled myself appropriately. I said, okay, fair enough. It's so and so. He's talking to me with a condescending voice. I've never done anything to him. He's complaining that nobody helps him. I said, first few weeks I came here, when I got caught up on my duties, I go down the aisle. I sorted everything on these pallets. I took all the jack bags, stacked up the jack bags, removed the jacks, removed the handles, removed the wrench for the lug nuts. I put everything and organized it. I looked up even some things in the NSN numbers and found out where they go and started putting stuff back where they belong. I said, I did that all myself. So I said, it bothers me when he says nobody's helping him. I said, he gets more help than I do. And I'm not fussing. I just get down to it. And I said, now I don't talk to him. I used to say good morning. I say good morning, and then he started being crusty. And so I don't speak anymore unless he speaks to me. She goes, well, have you thought about just trying? I said, trying what? Well, why don't you go back to saying good morning? And I said, well, I don't feel comfortable doing that, ma'am. When somebody plays their hand, somebody's being rude like that, I just think it's best to be quiet. And the man that was in there, he's the owner, and he said, well, Michael, there's a verse in the Bible, as far as it depends on you. And I finished it. I said, be at peace with all men. I said, but I've been doing that, sir. And I was always taught, when you don't have anything good to say, keep your mouth shut. She goes, that's right, keep your mouth shut. And I said, so, and what was happening in there, I was not in trouble, but they're trying to coach me. I said, well, I'll tell you what. I said, if I could just tell him, hey, I don't like the way you're talking to me. She goes, I would rather you do that. do you want us to get involved? I said, no. I said, I went to my supervisor. He says he's going to handle it. I don't need all the police out on this. I said, because of the workplace, ma'am, I don't want to say something to get me in the principal's office, okay? I said, so I'm really not sure. When somebody's acting ugly, I just turn off the circuit breakers and I ignore and I go on about my duty. And then the guy, he went to Bible college and he's trying to tell me that I want to say, look, and this will shock you what I'm about to say, viewers. My Christianity has nothing to do with what is going on. You got an employee who's being rude. You got me who's working his butt off, who has turned around in my short time, my area. My supervisor put on an eval at me saying, you're the hardest worker I've seen to date since I've been employed here for 6 years. And it was negative to me. And then he said, well, you have to put your personal, I don't like somebody versus something's bothering me. I said, I do. I said, I don't like it when he scuffs back and forth, but I'm not going to confront that. But I said, when he's talking to me with tone, yeah, that bothers me. And I thought to myself, no matter what people say, and I said, there's another danger, ma'am. I said, a lot of family relatives here. You went to school. You told me you guys went to school. I said, I don't really want to bring this stuff. She goes, well, Michael, we went to school all the way to high school, 5th grade, but yeah, I hadn't seen him in 20 years. So that doesn't excuse or whatever. And her bedside manner's not good. We have a system for clocking in on the phones. It didn't work for me. I followed the directions and said you must log in from a computer. I'm like, well, I can't. I only have phone internet at the house. And it was the weekend. Library's closed, whatever. Monday I went to work, went to clock in, it won't let me in the system. I told my food supervisor, don't worry, I got it. I'll let her know and I'll write it down. Don't worry about it. A week went by and she goes, you need to clock in. I said, I can't, ma'am. She goes, did you do it on a computer? I said, ma'am, when I got that email from you, it was on a weekend and I have no house internet. And she still continued to talk to me with this tone. And I'm going to say something. I'm going to say something about women in management and HR. They don't belong over us. I don't care what American culture and society says. The Bible is very clear. I do not permit a woman to teach or to have authority over men. There's a reason for that. Women are emotional creatures. They're not qualified. They don't have the qualifications to be in charge of, over, in leadership over us men. And watch what we've done in America. Men are so bad, they'll put a good-looking woman up on a pedestal. They'll bow to her and treat her like a queen. That's why we have the narcissism. That's why we have the entitlement. Men created the monster that we now have to confront. If men want sex, you have to bow to the almighty dragon of a woman. No, you need to slay the dragons. No, not a woman. But you need to carry yourself in such a way, say, hey, honey, I'm the head of my house, whether I'm married or not. You're not over me. Now, you can't go up and say that to your HR or your female boss. But there is a way to say, hey, the tone that you're using to me is not okay. It's not okay. And it's a fact. In American society, women get away with bad behavior, bad manners constantly. Why is that? Well, because they just do. They just do. And it's frustrating. This is E-Rock and his wife who came down here. They have an absolutely good relationship. She's out of town and visiting relatives in upstate New York, and he said, I miss her. He loves his wife. I'm throwing that as a random because I believe in having role models. I like talking to him because I can bounce stuff off him. He never tries to control me. He never tries to be boss. But because of the way he carries himself, I have natural respect for him, and I'm going to listen to what he says because what he says, I'm going to take it to heart. I do not like self-righteous people. This guy I work with is that way. He's gotten into it with everybody working back there with him. But when management comes around, he's all polite and nice. And I mentioned that. I said, look, let me make it clear. He doesn't talk to you the way he's talking to me. And he does this when there's nobody around to witness that. And I say that because it's like there are people that are very good at that. My mother was a classic. The phone would ring while she's yelling at my sister and I over nothing. Hello? Oh, yes. Oh, my kids are just, acting flippity-jibbit again. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you came down with an axe to grind and we didn't do anything. What a liar. Women are good at that. I had to go to the owner. One of the women in the office come out of the little frontage road and I pull out carefully. I move fast, but in my truck, I'm cautious. I'm a good driver. People like to speed and drive like an idiot, don't like to ride with me. But they've admitted, at least I'm safe when I ride with you. Yeah, because I'm not going to endanger your life. And I said something to my supervisor. He goes, you're going to have to talk because I have no control over that. But you're right. I've seen it. She's going to be the first out of that parking lot. I said, man, why is she at her job? She's in a climate controlled building. We're in freezing cold warehouse. And the way to keep warm is to move it. This guy's been here. He's got his hoodie over his head. 6 years younger than me, gray hair, and he sloughs his feet, and he's freezing cold because the energy level he puts forth is at 0.001%. Me, I've got so much to do. I'm moving. I'm sweating. I have to shed layers. I don't know how some people live. We were at lunch in the office the other day, and I overheard him saying something about the Holy Spirit. I said, I just thought to myself, what does he know about the Holy Spirit? I don't see him demonstrating any Christian anything, not in the work ethic, not in the way he treats people, not in a comment that he made to another employee who came and told me that. And I told him the next day, you've got to go to the supervisor. I said, that's bothering me. It was a racial comment, truly a racial one. They were going to the other location, and he said to the guy driving, they need to bring back public hangings. That's not something you say in front of black people, because down here, they usually hung black people just because they were black back in the day. And even I, when the black guy told me this, he's a good worker, very nice guy. I get along with him. I said, oh boy. I said, that was dumb. My culture is uniquely mine. I don't care what man, I don't care if you're a jarhead, been a Navy SEAL, fought in Afghanistan, Vietnam, Korea, whatever. I don't care. You treat me with disrespect, you're scum. I don't care how many shingles you got, how much money you make, what you drive. How you treat people is reflective of what you believe. Being condescending to people, and then you want to talk to the guy that went to Bible college about the Holy Spirit, you might want to submit to the Spirit. Tenderhearted, kind. You're not tenderhearted. You're not kind. You whine, you fuss about your job. And I just did a huge amount of work the day you were doing that with little or no help. And I don't know what you did over there all day. I cannot like somebody, but I can function. He's unhappy. He's even told me, I'll never be able to get caught up with this. And I feel like saying, why don't you find another job? Because you're not happy here. And when you're unhappy, this is Foundation Psychology 101. When you are not happy, you are going to negatively affect others, whether you realize it or not. And maybe what's going on is passive aggressive. You got to roll that brown tape. You put it in this unit, feed it through, and it goes over a moisty pad with a water reservoir, and you stick the tape on. It's packing tape, not the kind with the gun that sticks all over everything and then you can't get it undone. And yeah, I use those too. That's gay tape. You go to pull it off and it folds over on itself, and you're like, you rip it off and start again. And he comes over. I'm going 90 miles an hour, and he comes to say something to the supervisor who's checking an order, and he leans on the thing. I said, excuse me. He sees me pulling the tape, taping. I'm moving. He moves an inch away, but I can't grab the handle. I said, excuse me. And this time I used a little bit of firmness. He moved 2 inches back. And then when I'm busy doing something, slough, 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 slough. Then he'll stop between me and the rap roll. I'm like, I'm starting to believe that this guy's passive aggressive doing stuff. Stuff that you cannot point to and get him in trouble for, but inside he's going, I love this. I'm effing with him. Y'all been through that? Leave comments. Y'all been through that in your job? People that fly under the radar with stupid behavior like that you can't go in and say, well, you might go, well, you can't prove he's doing something out of spite. Then I'm sweeping the floor and he accidentally kicked something and it rolled into the way and he didn't bother to pick it up. And we got a pallet box that when I break down cardboard box of product that I have to repackage, whatever, I break them down. He just tosses the box in there 5 feet high. And I'm like, wow, he's complaining that nobody helps him. Then I empty all the trash in his department. I'm going to say something foundational and earth-shattering. Sometimes dealing with other Christians is worse than dealing with an unbeliever. Some Christians are so immature in their walk with God and their faith that they are bleeding all over the place. They don't see it, but they're judging everybody through their eyes. I go to work. And I said, God, every place I go to, there's always that thorn. Always that thorn in your side. You can't just go and have a nice cruise at your job. Go and work your butt off, get the accolades. You always got that cactus over there. You try to be careful, but then it gets close to you and you get pricked. Sheesh. Any of you go through that? It's crazy. So how do we deal with that stuff? You don't. Some people, their lives are just a wreck. That's it. You can't correct them. I'm at work. I'm not going to get into this. And I messaged the supervisor when I got home. I said, look, I don't ever want to go through that again. I said, you asked me to fill out the survey and put his name because he had told me, he says, I don't want to be the only one. He says, I see it, other people say it, but nobody will say it. You're saying it. This is the problem in society. People are afraid. And that's why bad guys and bad women survive. Society should have stood up a long time ago and said, Nikki and Cardi, we don't need this crap. It's so funny. They put rated PG on stuff on the movies. Where's the protection for children that are exposed to this? There's none. There's none. And it's very hard to live in this kind of a world. sometimes, as in the picture here, you can't see clearly. That's the oak tree that fell during Helene, just missing my house. You can see how close it is. I'm a problem solver. I should be in leadership, not some woman that's got immature emotional skills. And then you got to deal with that. Now you were brought in to talk about a problem, and now you're being coached by a Bible school grad who's younger than me, and a woman whose bedside manner's poopy anyway, who's in charge of HR, and you're like, oh my gosh. And I said to my super, I said, I don't want to go through this again. I'm not even going to mention this. He goes, I'm really sorry. He said, I I just don't want you to quit. I said, I'm not going to quit. I'm a big boy. I need my check. He said, no, you're a good worker. I said, yeah, but I don't need to have things turned around where I need to correct something. There's nothing I need to correct. I did exactly what I'm supposed to do. I let him continually be rude, and I kept reporting that to my supervisor. And then that one day I said, hey, I'm 59 years old. I think I know what a core is. And that was my subtle way of saying, stop talking to me like that, dude. I don't know who you think you are. He admitted he's never been married, doesn't have kids, but he has girlfriends. I'm like, I doubt that. You ever get around people like that? They devalue. And I even told the HR, I said, I worked my butt off over there. I said, I'm 59 years old and I got high energy. I don't got time for all this. I said, I just want to do my job. She goes, well, take your 59-year-old high energy and try to say good morning to him. I'm like, it's not very Christ-like, but it's like, that is not a requirement of the job. When I worked at Denver Schools, I had to talk with my boss. She goes, we ask that you be professional. If you don't like somebody, you do not have to talk to them. If they're dealing with work, you engage professionally about work. But if they want to side talk or small talk, and I told the lady that, I said, I'm not into all that small talk, ma'am. I said, if I don't like somebody, I keep my mouth shut. Well, that's probably best, but I would encourage you to at least try. Ma'am, I did. I want to say, can I encourage you as an HR lady to look at what the problem is? Because you're just reinforcing what I've heard. Michael's got to change. I didn't do anything. And I know your friend you went to school with, it's clearly showing up that you're trying to justify, excuse, and legitimize. And now you're going to quote a Bible verse, which is always in my mind. As far as it depends on you, live at peace with all men. Sometimes you got to suck it up, buttercup. Sometimes you got to keep your mouth shut. But I didn't need to hear that verse because I've been doing that. I didn't go up and say, hey, F you, stop talking to me that way. Sometimes to keep the peace, you bite your tongue and just go, God, I'm getting tired of this clown. I came home last night and I was a little bit upset. I let my supervisor know I'm not mad at you. I said, from now on, I'm going to go to you. Not putting this in the surveys no more. And then when I went to go log in, or not log in, but I opened it up and you click on it, it lets you fill. You have to log in. I don't have a login. I never did. My friend said, you don't think they did? I said, they didn't do that. I said, something in the program. I don't know what it is. No, they want me to fill it out. But I try to learn. So what I don't understand about Democrats is they do the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. And you want to talk about erosion and corrosion. They're eroding and corroding our society. But nothing they do is valuable or beneficial to God and to man and families and the Constitution and the Word of God. And what's really sad is when you have a woman who is a Christian, you have a man who is a Christian, and they both knew each other. And my prior dealings with her, I have never been rude to her. The other day, she asked if I was coming to the lunch. I said yes and welcome back. She just went over, her and her husband went on a trip. She didn't say thank you, whatever. That's to be expected. But she doesn't care about me. She's never come down and said, "Man, I hear you're working your tail off. That's really good." That's HR is for the express. Women are put in HR because it's a control trip for them. I've seen that my whole life. Every place I've worked, it's always female HR. I've never seen a man back there, never seen a Christian man. It's some immature, emotionally immature woman who's feeling the power. Women always want the power. And if you look at the book of Genesis and you look at your desire shall be for your husband, but he shall rule over you. That word desire is not sexual in nature. There's pastors that have done studies and they said their desire to usurp the authority of a man. Do you not see that? Look at the women and their rebellion with the music they're making. And then you got Christian women that tell me they're Christian listening to Mother F&B, Mother F&B, and all the NIGGERSs in the club. I mean, you're a Christian. You think the Holy Spirit's inside of you going, oh yeah, Chica, go Chica. Do you think the Holy Spirit is getting off on that? That's the problem. This is the culture that Michael is, and I live in a world that doesn't make sense. You're dealing with an HR lady. Now, what's become a problem with another guy, and I've handled myself right, now you're in the crosshairs of a woman who does not need to be an authority over Michael or other men. Now you got to be careful that you don't step and poo on the left and poo on the right. This is the kind of a world that is very dangerous to us. Sometimes other Christians can be very horrible to deal with, work with. Why is that? Aren't we supposed to be different? I mean, I struggle with my sins, and I don't want to rationalize those, but I try not to let my sins impact others where they have a bad day. There's people I don't like, but I will. Good morning. But when people show that they're not nice, then I stop. Like, don't talk. They're not responding favorably. It's $4.99. When I lived in Hong Kong, I could pay less for a dinner at a sit-down restaurant than I do for a doggone snack. Let's have fun with pictures, shall we? When you go to work, there's always going to be a struggle. God said for men there'd be a curse. The sweat of our brow, thorns, thistles. But some workplaces you go to are flooded with problems. Problems you'll never be able to solve. You went to work for a job, and look at my backyard. Look at the fence. That's my neighbor's fence. And then you can't see the other side. The one on my side, my fence was all down in the swamp. That's 8 inches of water and rafts of fire ants stuck together. How do you navigate the reefs that are all around us? One thing I can tell you, you always have to be careful that you don't do yourself in. That you don't want to do. And as a Christian, you have to know when to speak and when to shut your mouth. And I talked to my friend last night. I said, man, there is nowhere in work policy says I have to be giddy and get along with somebody I can't stand. He goes, no, there isn't. The only workplace policy is that I be professional. Okay? Well, what the heck? Sometimes it's a struggle just to do your job every day. Just to do your job, and then you got to deal with people that are not pleasant to deal with. And there's me still smiling. Still trying to be happy-go-lucky. As long as we don't let it change the core of who we are. A good ship captain learns how to navigate his vessel around dangers at sea. It's an education. It takes time. We live in a culture. I mean, I wanted to politely say, oh, I love that verse. It's one of my favorites. But I'm trying to be professional. You don't want to incriminate yourself. I want to say, but there's also another Bible verse that says, I do not permit a woman to teach or have authority over men. Why did you hire her in HR? Because her bedside manner is not pleasant. She's disingenuous, and she's off-putting. I had an atheist guy that I worked for down in Colorado at the truck center, Tom Snow. I got along with him. He does not believe in God, but we had very good discussions. And he had a way about him. He was an elite certified ski instructor, 77 years old. No, what was he? 70 years old. He had a poster-sized photo on the wall in the truck center. Forgot the name of the run. It's like this. You take a chairlift, snowcat, and then you got to hike to the summit. You go down the flank of this, and you got to turn out at a group of rocks. And if you don't, you're going over a cliff and you're done. It's over. The free fall and then the hit. I said, are there people your age? She goes, no. I go up with 20-something-year-old guys. They're looking at me thinking, what's this all fool? He was an elite certified ski instructor at Copper Mountain, Colorado. And Tom Snow was second to no one. He and his wife, Bunny, both ski instructors. That's how they met. I met Bunny, and she has a picture in her house up at Magnolia. And she's standing at the base of Everest. I said, oh my gosh. She goes, oh, I'd never climb it. But she said, I love that. She's right there by Tibet. And Tom would drive the truck. We'd go and drop off a truck, and I'd drop the truck off, and we'd ride back in the lot truck. And, the lot truck was something else. But Tom had a way about him, and he said, Mike, what do you think of the secretary in the office? So she's not very nice. No, she's a first-class bun. I said, your terms are funny. And he would say it in such a dignified way. He says, how'd you like that lady at the front desk at Cummins? I said, oh my gosh. He says, very off-putting. He says, Mike, some of these women shouldn't be in these positions. I said, well, they show their cleavage, Tom. He goes, that's right. Tom was something else. And these are the waters we got to navigate. I mean, you want to throw a Bible verse at me, well, throw it at that. Why'd you hire a woman to be in charge of us men? She's not in there seeing what we're doing all day. She's not over there to see what her buddy was doing. No, I'm not in danger. But it does. You go, God, please protect me because the devil is real. I did a live yesterday. I was on all 8 cylinders talking about these Somalis griping about America waving their little flags. And I'm going, that's messed up. And some guy left a comment, there's nothing wrong with people loving their country. I said, no, there isn't. But why are you going to wave your flag here and complain? And he even wrote, well, America's garbage. I said, then get out, dude. But what do you do when you're trying to survive? And you're encouraged. Deal with the problems. Tell your supervisor. Follow chain of command. What do you do when chain of command's a little off balance and off center? What do you do if your chain of command's a woman who's going to operate off emotionally driven logic and she feels the need to control me? Wait a minute. And I wanted to fill out the survey. What was your low point? Having to go to a meeting at the last 30 minutes of the day and be told things I need to correct when I hadn't done anything wrong. I did exactly what I'm supposed to do, kept my mouth shut and avoided conflict. Now I'm being told you should say good morning. Okay, he said, hey guys, how you doing? I say, good morning. I don't want to talk to him, but he made an effort and I say, good morning. That's it. But I'm not going to volunteer it anymore. He did start off being nice and then he got poopy. I'd say, good morning. Was that a fart or is that a good morning? That was a grunt. Folks, we shouldn't have to live like this, but guess what? Because of the world, the flesh, and the devil, we get all that thrown in for free. Isn't that fun? So we got to talk about this because this is my friend's going through crap. Right? He's going through crap at his job. He's got a boss who has it in for him, and not because of his work ethic. It's because his boss can't do what he does. How do you get yourself back in the driver's seat and being in control of the situation? First thing you do is pray to God. You tell God straight up, God, I don't like this. This is nasty, ucky doo-doo. I see the way she is. I see the way he is. And this is being slightly turned around so that they can avoid having to deal with the real issue. People are human. They protect their buddies. They protect their friends. This is the South, and it's a different culture. You could be the best you can be, and if people are uncomfortable because you're not just like everybody else, they'll still find a way to shred you. They'd rather have incompetence in some places that won't rock a boat than somebody who's actually creating more profit margin by getting on stuff and getting it done because of the way you are. I'm not in a box. And even though I have women listen to my channel that are going to get offended that I'm talking about this music issue, that's okay. They need to put on their big girl pants and they need to do some introspection. They need to get off my video and go sit down and say, why am I listening to this crap? Is there darkness within me? Yeah, there is. Why you listen to that foul stuff? Is that the kind of woman you want to be? Is that the kind of boyfriends you're just going to attract? I'm sorry, low class doesn't attract quality. Soft wood attracts termites. Graffitied up neighborhood doesn't attract high class people. It's hard to soar with wings of eagles when you're strutting with pigeons. People are getting sick, so I'll give you a couple little tidbits for fun. Try Epsom salt bath. Get your water hot in your tub, sit down in there, lean all the way back, put on some good, clean music, and just got a plugged up nose and you got nasal things going on. Get a bulb syringe or do what I do. When you first fill the tub and it's hot water, sometimes I'll lean over and I'll breathe in the water just to nasal cleanse the nostril passages. No, you don't breathe it into your lungs. You breathe it in where you can feel it. And it's amazing. When you go to blow, wow, all this stuff comes out. A little nasal cleanse is good. Peppermint tea is a biggie. I tell people this. When I was going to Hong Kong in 2009, the swine flu was going around, and I heard a thing on the Spokane News. Anybody going on an international flight, if they detect a sniffle or anything, they may not allow you to board. Symptoms of possible swine flu. 2 weeks before I got to go to Hong Kong, I catch a cold. Drove my bus routes. Got home that morning. I sound like the Godfather. I'm dying over here. On my morning break, I put on that hot tea, put some honey in it, got it piping hot, and sipped it. Got through the day. The next day, I was markedly better. People go and get all these medications. I don't know if you realize something. Our society's on meds and it's not improving a damn thing. Stop having a love affair with Big Pharma. Go back to some holistic, natural stuff. Put some ginger in your diet. Buy some ginger candy chews. Get some tea in you. Use garlic. Do stuff that's simple. You want to know something else? Turn off the toilet music. Did you know that most healing has to do with this too? That if you're feeling upbeat, if you play stuff that's soothing and good, it can make you bounce back quicker. Call that friend who encourages you. I was listening to something on the YouTube the other day about the frontal lobe of the brain, that stress and life can be hard and damage that. But it said good relationships can counteract that. Wow, isn't it something? God made us to be in a healthy relationship with people and Him. It's cold season, man. There's stuff going around. Drink some of that hot tea. Eat some ginger chews. Take some time to heal you. I learned something yesterday. Don't fill out the survey, but don't put that stuff. You have a problem, somebody go say something to your supervisor. But since she gave you permission, just say, hey, could you do me a favor? I always personalize it. When you talk to people that are difficult, don't do this. On my channel, I can talk about anything I want because it's my channel. I'll cry if I want to. When you're dealing with a difficult person, never, hey, can I talk to you? I feel like whenever you talk to me that you're being condescending. I feel less threatening. Try that. They cannot devalue you and discredit your feelings. And if they do and they act like a butthole, then you just say, well, you know what? I've actually tried to talk to you. I was actually told to talk to you. So now I'm going to go to the supervisor. Have a good day. I don't know why. I used to go to Shoko Oil. Good people. Except the older woman that looks like she fell out of a bar vat, smoked too much, tats, that salon tan, saggy boobs. Very, very rude, very hostile. And every time she had a young trainee in there, they were always nice to me, but she was robo-biatch. And I walked in there one day and one of the ladies said, hey, Mike, how are you? I said, I'm good, just keeping busy at the truck center. And I had to bring trucks to add a little fuel to them for customer pickup. And I said, yeah, I'm getting ready to go to the Philippines. Really? I said, yeah, there's a gal I talked to on my Facebook for a year, and I'm going to go visit her and her family. Well, Miss Robo turned around and glared at me with this hateful look. You know what I've noticed in our society? Evil, dark women don't like me. Because the minute I walk into a room with my energy and my way, cockroaches don't like the light. Miserable white woman. Thought she was all that on a stick. Probably sat at the bars, cigarette dragging out of her mouth, drinking it up. And men think that kind of a woman is hot stuff. Why? Live with that. See how comfy that is. Your whole house smells like smoke. She talks like this and she's just got that attitude all day. Yeah, great. You're in customer service and we got a account with you. We fuel a lot of trucks and you can't even say, hey, Mike, how are you today? How do women get away with that shitey behavior? How they do that? You know how you get in the driver's seat? You don't talk to them. You don't look at them. You go up to the desk. She's crusty. When I leave, I'll very sternly say, thank you, walk out the door. I am a firm believer, reflect what they project. Turn the mirror around. When they're shining that hot sun at you, turn around so it goes zing in their own eyes. Sometimes that's the most effective weapon in dealing with difficult people. I mean, I don't want to get in trouble, but when he said, do you know what a core is? Do you know who Michael Nelson is, sir? Do you know how old I am? Do you know what countries and states I've lived in? Do you know these things? You don't. But I do know what a core is. Back the fookie up. You cannot change people. But sometimes, if God allows, there are ways we can carry ourselves that'll cause them to put it in reverse and at least back up a little. Experiment carefully and find what works for you. You shouldn't have to be walked on and stomped on. And I love life. I love life. Even though work is hard, shoot, if I had a choice, of $1 million and quit, I'll grow my hair back, wear my chain, and strut my stuff and live free. But you can still be free in your job. You still can be free in your job. You've got to, one of the things, and I say this, is we all need God, no matter what. I do go to church. Church ain't perfect. Nothing is today. But hearing the truth is powerful. It's powerful. Because even though we're resistant, even though we have our own rebellion, it can literally, it could wipe the rust off of us, the carbonation off of us. When I pulled that compressor and it was covered in what looked like soda, the metal literally is like what happens to a battery when it starts to corrode on itself. How did this get all over there? And it happens to us, folks. It happens to us. Even though we have good intentions. I miss this. I really miss that. I miss my hair, man. When you be yourself, you're going to get criticized. These women listening to that kind of music, that's an issue because that's a reflection of what's going on inside of this. And they may have nice these and they may be cute, but do you want to live with somebody playing that stuff? Does that turn you on? It wouldn't me. I don't want to hear that in my home. That stuff is oppressive. That stuff, when I hear it, I get agitated in my spirit. Do things agitate your spirit? I'm not talking about you. I don't want to hear that stuff in here. I want to thank my viewers for tuning in and watching. The psychology of the internet plays out even on my channel. I talk about it with a couple of my moderators. And, people that want to get to know me are saying, hey, how can I get a hold of you? And that's awesome. That's good. Because you want to attract people into your life that are going to be a help, not a hindrance. I have no regrets for shutting the chat down. None. I hated to do it because there were some good people in there. But it was a way to test between the men and the boys and the girls and the ladies. I'm watching people make videos now and they're making stuff with very foul music. I'm like, wow. Me getting rid of chat cleaned me up a little bit. I'm putting classical music out there and some good stuff. And some of you women are commenting, and thank you for that. And then people that I looked at and thought were somewhat attractive, and they're playing these videos with this music, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm glad that we didn't become one. Yeah, no, that's not good. And I'm not being hateful. For those of you that are listening and you know I'm talking about your music, please, you have to understand. I mean, that as a Christian, there's nothing positive you can say about that stuff. There's nothing redeeming of it. Nicki Minaj needs to get saved. So does Cardi B. So does all this crappy music. They all need to get saved. They're entertaining themselves into hell, and it's not even good entertainment. Yeah, I can still hear that old honky tonk piano. Dun 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 dun. I did not have a good relationship with the natural born of my mother, my sister. But when her and the cousin would get on the piano side by side on the bench and do Heart and Soul, they and other people in the family failed to realize that that had an affect on me. And guess what? Do you know why? Because my life doesn't evoke daddy music. It's heart and soul. I love those old scratchy records or B. Swain. Heart and soul. Da, 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 da. Man, if you don't have class, you don't got nothing. If you don't have deep calls unto deep, we say this, I say this a lot. Our culture circling the drain, folks. Are you speaking out about it? Are you challenging yourself? Are you asking ladies, why are you listening to this? Is that the kind of men you want to attract? The kind of lifestyle you want to attract? Does that turn you on? It's cheap, it's decadent, it's garbage. And I'm going to speak out. Where's the ladies? You could call me old school. You could call me a lot of things. But that's okay. I'd rather go back to that. Sometimes with our culture, you need to pull out of that port, put the helm to full ahead, and get out of there. Sail your ship with class, folks. Don't be docking in some dirty port. It's not worth it. Thanks for listening. God bless. Be safe. Till next time.